What's up, y'all? It's Cartier Rob back here again to guide us through another cultural phenomenon with the hope to encourage you to invest in you and learn a little bit more about yourself. So, today's cultural phenomenon is: am I a burden? You might be, but determining if you're a burden on yourself or someone really is dependent upon how self aware you are of yourself. Now, before I kind of get into this content, I really want to give a shout out to my church service that I recently had. And my pastor really broke down some concepts that I definitely think that's important to talk about, where I took a spiritual inspiration and I really wanted to turn into something that, whether you follow Christ or not, or I really think you can take it into your life. And that is, life is full of inconveniences, and how you carry that burden is important, because how you carry that burden might determine if you're a burden on you or someone else. Now, I think we should kind of get things started with this. Having burden and being a burden isn't a bad thing. It's all about perspective and how we kind of look at it. It's the behavior. It's when we notice weakness or struggles that we are dealing with, and we either lie to ourselves or we don't share it with others. And I think that's important, because an important piece is ownership. Ownership in your burden, ownership in your weakness. Self awareness is key. Self awareness is the ability to know what's going on in your life and your deep inner parts of you. Self awareness is knowing that life is full of inconveniences, and also knowing that we're not untouchable. We can think of so many plans, we can have so many schemes, but when we think we're untouchable or something couldn't happen to us, that's when we can fall in that pitfall, in that trap, or that good old phrase of you got to pull yourself up by the bootstraps, which is true. You do have to pull yourself up by the bootstraps, but it's the ability to think that you will never fall, to ever believe that you have to pull yourself up, is a mind fallacy that we create, because because we have to have the mental space and take ownership to build. And when I'm meaning build, building ourselves, building opportunities to love ourselves, building opportunities to see that maybe I don't belong in the cycle, or maybe I do need to understand that I need to be out of this circle of friends, family, loved ones, and be able to build somewhere where I belong. Because taking ownership is important and key, because there's an individual aspect to our own burdens. Because there are times where 110%, I will say that you will have to fight some battles alone. And there also will be times where you do have to take accountability for the things that you do. But sometimes we can take too much ownership, and that too much ownership can build vagueness. And sometimes that may look like, I'm not going to tell anyone what I'm doing, or why would I show this to this amount of people? Because we think that vagueness builds protection, and it really doesn't. It only builds internal vagueness. When our own thoughts start to run and excessive thinking runs rampant, when we have that internal vagueness, we really trick ourselves, and we can fall into and listen to the self-deception that builds in our own mind. I'm going to be honest with you, sometimes I can fall for it. It's when we hear that voice, because there are times where we have to pull ourselves up by the bootstraps, but that voice of pulling ourselves up by the bootstraps can sometimes be a self-deprecating thing that's not truly open and truly honest to the situation. But that's only one part of this pie. This next part, which is, to me, I think the chef's kiss of it all, is sharing and confessing. The reason why I think it's important that sharing and confessing is such a integral part to figuring out if you're burdensome or not is because I know I recently just spoke about the importance of taking ownership and you taking ownership in your life, but there's aspects when you are in this life. No one's self-made. No one does this by themselves. we got to get sometimes out of our own heads to really figure out what's going on. And that comes with the ability to confess. Being able to confess allows that sometimes self deception that may build when we're just only talking to ourselves to actually have some reality. And in the therapy world, we may call that reality testing. Reality testing is getting real data and feedback to what's going on, because sometimes our own internal voices can build a false sense of security. And the power behind confessing to someone else and maybe a group of people is an opportunity to get it out of your head and out into the world, where someone else may be able to see what's going on, or a loved one can really show some support. Confessing allows an opportunity to be seen. In this world, there's so many people that go unseen, and we develop in our minds that no one cares. But sometimes we just don't know where we get started. Heck, we're all grown. Maybe there's that person you got to call on the phone that you're not calling. And, if they called me, they would call me if they could. But we're grown. Meaning, if you get that inclination that you need to talk to someone, that's that confession itching at your gut that maybe you should reach out and say something to them. Also, confession leads to change. Being able to say what's on your mind to someone leads to a potential outcome. But just because you confess some shortcomings or needing support doesn't erase the consequences that we have to deal with. Knowing whether your burden is an individual battle that you may need support, or battle that you may actually need support, is an important aspect that confession really gives to an individual. Because what would it feel like to know that if you were battling a battle and someone was able to cheer you on, root you on? Or what if you actually needed some support to get over that hump? Knowing the difference between the two, whether you need support or you actually need some encouragement, or you need someone to really assist you, is truly life. No one can escape it. We think we can overthink it, because all this stuff, if I'm being honest, it leads to narratives that we write about ourselves, narratives we may perceive. But when we really have the flexibility to know when to become a narrator, knowing when to be in our story, knowing when to get into a writings room, I think that's an important aspect to figuring out if we are burdens. Are we? Because when we start thinking that no one would care, that's actually a self-deprecating or self-deception that comes up from you either leaning too hard to one of these sides. Now, I think confession and knowing your ownership should build humility in a person. Humility in the fact that we're not untouchable. Hey, as a therapist, even though I help a lot of people, I'm not untouchable. But when we get into the mindset of, oh, I can do it all by myself, or I just need to have this person help me do almost everything, we lose the aspect of the humility of choice in human life, because we're always at a crossroad of, do I ask for help, or do I do it myself? The real humanity of it all is making a decision. And if I'm being like super honest with you, seeing it through, whether it was right or wrong, you having the choice and not giving in to the despair of, just by you not reaching that goal doesn't mean you're not worthy. And only reason why I say that is because it's very easy for someone to find themselves being burdensome or being a burden because they haven't met some outcome or expectation. That will come, but knowing that you have that makes you unstoppable, because no one in this life is perfect. And once we start to understand that we will never catch perfection, we're only chasing it like a beautiful butterfly that should land and we admire and let it flutter away, then we can be more into the story of our own lives. You're not a burden if you made it this far in the video. You can become burdensome when you don't know where you're at in your life, when you don't know yourself, and when you're not challenging, reflecting yourself, whether you should take individual ownership, whether you should share your burden with someone else, because it's so beautiful when you're able to provide and to really give and to serve and to help other people navigate through life, because we're all in this together. So I hope this video potentially challenged you to think a little differently about what burden and being burdensome is, because we aren't, but it's how we're navigating through life. Because when we work at it all together, we can make life more bearable for us all. So if you like this video, like, comment, subscribe, and hopefully I helped you get through something today. Thank you.